Welcome back, everyone. I'm T,
And I'm Nessa.
and together we are the Casual Fangirls, just two friends who are slowly leading more into our geekiness by reviewing and speculating on their favorite fantasy stories. This episode, we're going to keep it pushing with our continued coverage of the HBO show House of the Dragon, the Game of Thrones prequel that dives deeper into the history of the Targaryen dynasty. If we learned nothing from being in Westeros, it's that promises and prophecies matter. In this story, and Nessa, I just want to say that if you ever name me as your heir, I expect you to keep that promise, regardless of your dreams or if you have a son. Is that clear?
I make no promises.
That gets at the main theme of this week's HBO House of the Dragon episode, second of his name. But before we dive into it, Nessa, I'd like to get your overall reaction to this episode. What you think?
I definitely thought it was like a growing up episode for everybody. Well, for not everybody, but for some people, very much like a coming of age. We see Rhaenyra. She's been cast aside this whole time, and like no one wants to see a woman as queen, in Westeros. And she takes some actions this episode that definitely I think will make people look at her differently. And even look at herself differently, like, oh, I can do this. Like, I am, because we have to, we haven't really stated this yet, but this episode takes place 3 years after our previous episode. So she is now 17, 18?
17.
By this point, right? And so she is, I mean, they would have considered her a woman when she got her blood moon, but she is like an adult woman now, And so a lot of time has passed. There's been a lot of growing that's taking place. Damon also makes some, moves and decisions that I think he, at a certain point, is like, I can't keep looking to my brother for approval. I need to do certain things to stand on my own. Mm-hmm. And then we get reacquainted with Corlys's son, Laenor. And he definitely shows us he all grown up. He's a man now. Okay. And we'll get into more of those details later on. But I thought it was definitely like an action-packed episode. I thought there was great dynamics at play. We get to see more of Alicent. We see how Alicent and Rhaenyra's friendship has shifted and how much tension there is now. And it's just, it's a lot going on, guys. And we're definitely going to get into all the details. But how would you describe the episode to everyone?
I was just really into the family drama of it all. Like you mentioned, seeing those dynamics, the interactions between the individuals, now that we're 3 years later and literally the family structure has changed. Like that was the highlight of the story, was just watching Rhaenyra and Viserys have to, and even Alicent, just have to understand their role, whether they accept it or not, and how they choose to navigate the tensions between the three individuals. I thought it was like really, really interesting. It felt very Jerry Springer-esque, and we're going to get to that as we dive deep into the details. But I really enjoyed it for that aspect of it. Like, as you mentioned, it's still action-packed. There's still a lot going on. But this story did a great job of pushing us 3 years forward and making us feel like we didn't miss a whole lot. So
yeah.
Excited to be here. Let's get into it. Before that, Nessa, let's give them a spoiler warning.
Absolutely. Okay, now for the spoiler warning, y'all. If you are new here, okay, y'all need to know that T and I, we go through the plot points of the episode. We discuss our feelings, any significant connections to real life or the story that we made while watching. And we freely speculate about what we think may happen as the story continues to unfold. That being said, if you haven't watched this episode or previous episodes of House of the Dragon or Game of Thrones, you're welcome to stay, but just know that we are definitely going to be spoiling the story for you guys. We are going to be talking about all the details. We might make random connections, and, we don't want you guys to be upset with us. Like, wait, why y'all talking about Game of Thrones? I thought we were talking about House of Dragon. We're doing it all. So it's definitely a blanket spoiler warning. But we won't be spoiling anything from Fire and Blood. So we're not going to jump ahead of the story and spoil anything for you guys. We're going to stick to what's already been out there, at least in terms of visual representation.
Yeah.
So let's dive in. T, kick us off.
So we open this episode, second up his name, on the battlefield where Damon and Corliss are still fighting the crab feeder. And we instantly realize they are effectively losing this war. Their offense isn't as strong as the crab feeder's defense, and it's making our Westerosi warriors tired and disheartened. They need help badly.
Expeditiously.
Really expeditiously. What I loved about this scene is we get to see way more what it's like having a dragon on the battlefield, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, we see that fire, as we've always known, is effective, sure, but they're still vulnerable to pointy things.
Yeah, that's a thing.
They can't fit into small spaces. So it's not, it makes it easy. If you have places to hide from a dragon, that is going to be the safest bet. And it looks like that's what the crab feeder and his people have been doing, and it's been working. Just tiring out our offensive heroes.
For sure. I have a nitpick. My nitpick is I need everyone to choose how the dragon fire is going to work. I'm tired of seeing the fire raining down, and there's either two options that happen. The person burns up immediately and they're gone, or they're on fire and they're just running. So I need them, and we know that dragon fire is supposed to be like the hottest flame ever. So I feel like it should just be them instantaneously turning to ash.
So here's my question. Have we seen in this series dragon fire lead to incineration?
Yes. Even in this battle, there was one soldier. There was one soldier who got hit by fire and instantly was gone, and like just his foot was left.
So I guess it depends on the range, right? Like the people who I saw, I'm caping a little bit, right?
It's fine.
A little bit. Devil's advocate for a little bit. I mean, obviously, the closer you are to the source of the fire, the hotter the fire is going to be. So I would assume more likely you are to be incinerated. I don't know. I'm trying. You're probably right. There probably is no consistency to it.
I wish there was more consistency. That's my nitpick. Okay, but that's why it's called a nitpick. It's just.
I mean, to that end, also like talking about the fire, like the one thing you absolutely see in the scene is that you can't control the fire once it's out there, right?
Yes.
And so we see that there's a lot of, excuse my French, friendly fire when the dragon, because double word, whatever, the phrase is friendly fire when you're shooting and stuff like that, but we're talking about a dragon with actual fire. Now I'm over explaining it. It's fine.
I thought you were gonna cuss. I was like,
no, sorry. Excuse. I should have said that. Okay, excuse the double play on word, I guess. There's a lot of friendly fire. Dragons, you can't direct the fire to your foes only. If you are going to burn people who are on your side as well. And they're so big that it's hard for them to even control like where they land. We see our Westerosi men getting stepped on by the dragon that was supposed to be saving them. We see them getting burnt up by the dragon that's supposed to be saving them. And one may think, oh, collateral damage in the larger scheme of things. But like to that individual that was like, oh, my Prince Daemon has come to rescue me. He killed you.
Mm-hmm.
And didn't even know. We'll never know probably that he killed you.
Yeah, and I think that's a choice that any dragon rider has to be aware of, right? And we've seen Tyrion and what was his name? But they warned Dany about this, right? Like, hey, you can bring your dragons in, but you have to understand that you're putting everyone at risk when you unleash your dragons, right? Because there's no precision when it comes to this. It's just you're unleashing hell on earth, basically. And so I think it was brilliant to bring it from that point of view of this soldier being like, my prince has come to save me, and he gets crushed. And I was just like, ooh, you thought he came to save you, but not quite. So that was brilliant. Cool. Where are we
Yeah.
going next?
So we're gonna go back to King's Landing and talk about our wonderful Jerry Springer family drama that we got going on. So y'all, it's 3 years later, and Viserys and Alicent has gotten busy.
Is that?
Yes, heavy shades of what was his name from The Incredibles? He's like, oh, Alaska girl, and it got busy. Anyways, we cut to the That's where I got that from. We cut to the realm's nobility gathering to celebrate their son Aegon II's second birthday. And here we meet the head of the Hightower family, Otto's older brother, and the leader of the Hightower family, and Old Town. He urges Otto to convince King Viserys that naming Aegon heir is better for the realm because no one will respect Rhaenyra as their queen. We also see Viserys get news of Daemon and Corlys that they're losing and could use help from the crown. Viserys refuses as he doesn't want to drag the realm into a war he feels his brother created. He's also trying to focus on his family. Rhaenyra isn't around for the celebration. We then see Rhaenyra out in the Godswood by herself, reading and listening to songs of a seaworthy heroine. Wish I knew more about that. Alicent comes to relay Viserys' requirement that Rhaenyra joins them in the celebrations, and Alicent tries to give an olive branch while acknowledging that there are tensions within the family. So a lot happened in those two scenes. So first of all, we learned that it's been 3 years since the last episode. Alicent has had a son who's now 2. His name is Aegon, and she's pregnant again, like heavily pregnant again. So immediately the audience is like, oh snap, like we understand the ramifications of this instantly, right? Like the first 2 episodes have told us that this man is craving a son. Heir and the whole the lineage is a whole thing for him. And here he has it, and it's with his daughter's best friend. So did you have any instantaneous reactions to seeing this little new mini family with Rhaenyra off to the side?
I just felt so bad for Rhaenyra. It was just like, damn, she done been cast aside because he done remarried and had a new family. And because it was crazy enough that they have the son, right? Now she's pregnant again. And I'm just like, oof, y'all doing it, because now imagine if they have more sons and stuff like that, even they will have better claims, at least in the realm's eyes than Rhaenyra. So she's just getting pushed further and further along, honestly, down the path. And it just made me feel like I was wondering if Rhaenys's words were ringing in her head. Like, when he has this son, you're going to be looked over. You're going to be pushed aside. This is the order of things. And you're going to learn very quickly. And that was one of the first things that came to my mind. I was just like, I wonder if that's on her brain.
That's a good point. And we'll get to this scene in a second, but it didn't even occur to me that Rhaenyra wasn't a part of the group of ladies that were just gossiping, basically. Yeah. And it would make sense that she wouldn't be there if her husband essentially went against the crown and went to war. Right. She wouldn't still be at court supporting all of the, showing her face around and all that stuff. Yeah. But you're absolutely right. Heavy echoes of everything that Rhaenyra said in the previous episode.
And then the other thing that stood out to me and really bothered my soul is Alicent walking around flexing her new power. And I was just like, I was like, hold on. You done screwed over your best friend, didn't tell her that you was sneaking in her daddy's chambers, went and married her daddy, having his children, and now you want to come out here talking about the queen commands it, like throwing your weight around and stuff. I didn't like that at all. I was like, and because there's clearly this part of Alicent that wants back the old relationship that they had. And I was like, you saying things like the queen commands it does not help at all. Or even trying to quote unquote connect with her and be like, well, Aegon's birth was so easy, girl. It wasn't even that bad. I was like, ew.
I was definitely going to bring that up when we got to that scene.
I jumped ahead a little bit, but it just bothers me.
It's totally fine. Let's just go there really quickly then and say that right after that scene, we see them and we see the family unit in a carriage on their way to the Kingswood. where they plan to hunt in celebration of Aegon's birthday. And we learned that Viserys is like, his main focus right now is getting his family in order, right? Particularly with Rhaenyra. So he mentions like, Rhaenyra, you got to get married. I want grandkids. Like, basically, let's do this so you can further the line. And Rhaenyra is kind of like, why do you even care? Like, y'all been neglecting me. She correctly pointed out that her father and the realm doesn't care about her anymore, only Aegon. And Viserys does try to include Rhaenyra in some of the festivities, but she's kind of not having it. And so in that particular scene, I thought it was super highlighted, like this typical blended family drama. Daddy remarried, and now all the attention is on them and her and their new kid. And like, I'm kind of cast to the side, Jerry Springer-esque because it's your best friend. But also to your point about Alicent alluding to how easy Aegon's birth was, I immediately thought, what a gut punch when Viserys' ex-wife and Rhaenyra's mother died in a gruesome childbirth that we all saw.
Girl, my mind didn't even go there.
Oh, I went there immediately. I was like, oh, read the room, Alicent. Damn.
Ooh, cringy. Damn, that's messed up. That's why good point. Good point.
So to your point about Alicent trying to extend the olive branch, totally agree. Alicent is like, it's obvious she cares for Viserys. Let's start there. She cares for Viserys. And she also cares for Rhaenyra. And she knows Rhaenyra probably the best out of anyone in the story so far. And we'll see more evidence of that as we get later on in the episode when she is able to properly give the king advice on how to handle Rhaenyra in certain aspects. But she's just so new at this that she just doesn't understand, I don't think, when she's rubbing people the wrong way, particularly Rhaenyra. Because even Viserys reacted when she said that. Like, the look on his face was like, damn, why you say that?
Wild.
Yeah. Right, so let's keep it pushing. So in the tent where everyone's kind of like partying and parlaying, Rhaenyra overhears the ladies of the noble houses talking about Daemon's war. Alicent comes to her defense because they had some shots for Rhaenyra kind of as well, talking about, again, the secession and whether or not Rhaenyra will be heir. So Alicent comes to her defense. And then Rhaenyra in turn defends her father's choice to not send troops into the Stepstones to support Daemon. Now, what stood out to me about this scene was that, like, people are talking. Everybody's got an opinion, and they are surprisingly not afraid to share it. Like, how
very publicly.
You were sitting in a circle with the queen talking about your husband's not doing anything. Like, why does she feel so comfortable to do that?
Tough look.
Cersei would never.
Tough look.
They would never do that in front of Cersei.
Yeah. They're too familiar. They are too familiar. And you're right. It just shows that everybody in the realm is questioning whether Rhaenyra is going to remain heir. And not crazy thing, but the funny thing is that nobody except Viserys actually expects Rhaenyra to stay heir. Everybody's like, oh, he's going to make this announcement at some point. And that's why, like, all these marriage proposals are, like, pouring in. And that's why, and they're trying to marry her off and do all these things. And it's like, Viserys is the only one like, no, I'm not changing my mind. That's not going to happen. I made a promise. And everybody's like, yeah, sure. And you can tell that should Viserys choose to keep Rhaenyra as heir, this is going to cause a lot of conflict and turmoil in the realm. It's going to get wild, girl.
It's about to get wild. And you made a great point about the marriage proposals. Like, it just occurred to me, and we're going to talk about the one kind of proposal she got during the episode. People sort of, it was real lazy, real like boy-ass, just like, I'll build you a dragon pit. That's how you propose to me? Okay.
I'm going to get you a Chanel bag. What more do you need?
Birkin, right? Like, I'm going to get
Birkin. You're right. It's a Birkin. It's not even Chanel. It's a Birkin.
To your point, though, the people who are proposing, they're proposing in a way that's just like, oh, I'll make sure she's comfortable. And
Mm.
not in a like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
I can be her king consort, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's two different ways to approach the situation. She's gonna have to marry regardless if she's queen or not, right? Like that's everyone knows that. But the fact that the men who are trying to court her are not respecting the place that she's in right now tells like 1,000 tales about where the realm is right now. So specifically with one of them, Lord Jason Lannister, the twin of Tywin Lannister, who sits on the King's Council, approaches Rhaenyra to boast of his wealth while offering it to her as his future wife. Rhaenyra politely takes leave. I was a little proud that she didn't spaz in the moment because I thought she might
Mm-hmm.
have. But it's obvious by her confrontation with King Viserys, she's not having it at all. She calls him out on him trying to sell her off, even though she's made it clear she doesn't want to marry, and they argue in front of those in attendance about
Mm-hmm.
tradition and duty. Viserys is very firm that she must marry. Rhaenyra runs away from camp with her Kingsguard Christian Cole following close behind. What were
Yes.
your thoughts about this whole dynamic of Viserys basically being like, "Hey, Jason, go try to talk to my son. Go try to talk to my daughter." Like, because you saw the look he gave when he saw that Jason was like looking at her. He pretty much, I'm assuming off camera, went to him and was like, "Yeah, go ahead."
Possibly. But yeah, I mean, it does not surprise me that, guys are lined up out here trying to marry Rhaenyra. But like you said, it's more of like, we're going to make sure that she's comfortable and like she still has a good seat, regardless that she's not going to be queen. And like you said, the proposal was very lazy. It was very much like, here's what I can buy you and here's what I can do for you. And it's very clear that like they do not understand who they are talking to.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I think that's the problem because those things don't impress her. She does not care about the type of seat that she has. She's not worried about, honestly, her focus is hopefully I get to stay as heir and potentially become queen. Or even if I don't get to become queen, I still want to be in charge of my life and choose my road and choose where you choose, and just be able to make my own choices. So if you don't know her, you're not going to have that approach. So I was proud of the way she walked away and she kept it cool. But then when she got with daddy and they was arguing in public, I was like, ooh, girl, we in public. Like, people are listening. What are we doing here? Like, you know what I'm saying? And especially like to Viserys, like, you are yelling at your daughter in front of court, essentially.
Basically.
And it was a wild time. It was a wild time, but sometimes you just got to get it out.
It was. I mean, yeah, and I think it just shows how real, like, at least to show the people in the room that. Well, I mean, everyone knows that the Targaryens aren't perfect. That's one of their fears, but like they're just real and they're emotional and they have things they need to figure out as well. I'm sure they would be gossiping about that though. Like moving forward. Absolutely.
But I'm sure they also felt like, you don't even got control of your daughter. Or your daughter is not suited to be on the throne because she don't listen. She's arguing with you instead of doing what she's told. That too. She doesn't want to live up to her duties, and
Yeah, I mean, the whole duty, when Viserys yelled at her that even he is not above tradition and duty, right. That strongly reminded me of the whole "love is the death of duty" line from Maester Aemon in Game of Thrones when he was telling Jon, when Jon was conflicted about whether to go, save his father or fight with Robb, or to remain a brother of the Night's Watch. And so it reminded me of that. And I think here the reverse is true also, right? Like, so instead of love is the death of duty, duty is the death of love. In many of these cases, I think Viserys got lucky in that he was betrothed to Rhaenyra's mother for political reasons. She was head of the Vale, they had a huge army, yada, yada, yada. But also he wound up loving her as well. So he got lucky that both things were true. But in reality,
they're also related.
Oh, and they're also related. Yeah. But in reality, when you have that seat high in the land, your duty means that you don't get the privilege of being in love. If you are having, like, you might get lucky, but that's not something that is
Yeah.
right for you. So I thought that was a really good callback. And then finally, just really quickly, how did it feel to have a Lannister on screen again?
It meant nothing to me because I don't feel like we're not really connected to the Lannisters right now at this point. We're not following their story. So to be honest, it didn't really, I wasn't like, oh, okay. And it wasn't a Lannister name that I recognized or anything. So it didn't really, it didn't really sit with me in any type of way. Okay. Did it make you feel any sort of way?
I thought it was cool to see that twins run in the Lannister family. I thought that was kind of cool. Hopefully these twins aren't doing the same thing that the other twins we know were doing. But, and then just separately, to see that, like, the Lannister arrogance is like embedded in their DNA, because it's just, we have money. The Rock is bigger than the Wall, and it's just like, is it?
Right.
Like, have you been to the Wall? Like, do you even know that? Like, come on.
Right. Highly doubt it.
All right. So seeing some of that was kind of cool. Anyways, let's get back to Rhaenyra. So after she runs away from camp and Christian, being the good Kingsguard that he is, follows her to make sure that she's safe, we realize that they're pretty close. The assumption is during the 3 years they've gotten closer, since he needs to be by her side at all times. And it's kind of nice to see that she has someone to talk to. It's clear that she confides in him, and he's a good listener. He tries to convince her to return to camp, but follows along and supports her in her stubbornness to remain in the Kingswood. I thought that dynamic was kind of cute too. Yeah. They discuss duty to marry based on their station. He reassures her that she has made significant impact already, and she shares she's worried about being named heir just so she can further the line instead of of what she can actually do as ruler of the Seven Kingdoms. She very clearly, she wants a voice of her own. She wants to flex her abilities.
Oh, definitely.
Did you get any romantic vibes from them?
Absolutely. I mean, from the moment that she names him to the Kingsguard, I was like, you like him. Well, even from before that, right? When she sees him at the tourney, oh, he's Dornish. I was like, okay, settle down.
Settle down.
Yeah. So, and like you said, it's clear that in these 3 years, they've obviously forged some sort of friendship. And so I definitely think that there are some romantic vibes there. And he's part of the Kingsguard. So technically, he's not supposed to be allowed to marry or father any children. So will that be maybe the death of his duty? Or
ooh, I don't know.
Who knows? But how did you feel about the vibe between them?
Definitely some romance. It felt like they were keeping it very as professional as they could. You know, like, I didn't think that they had crossed any lines yet. But I think that it's set up that if the opportunity arises, that like one of them could cross a line and the other one probably wouldn't be that mad at it. So
yeah. But I also did find it odd that none of them thought about the optics of them two being in the woods together. Like, I'm surprised that didn't come up like, hey, I want to stay here to protect you, but this kind of looks bad. Or like even her being like, you can't be alone with the queen. Like, so I'm surprised that didn't come up at all.
I mean, overnight. They were gone together overnight. Like, they could have been getting busy all night long and no one blinked an eye, which I thought was really odd because Bridgerton, that would have been like, come on.
It would have been over, yeah. And nobody sent out a search party? Like, your heir is missing. And nobody sends out a search party to find. That's wild. That's crazy to me that could go on for so long. And nobody was like, Kristen's missing too.
Well, no, someone did say like, oh, Rhaenyra's missing. Kristen went after her, so hopefully they're safe and together. Someone did say that to the king. But in that moment, to your point, the king wasn't like, send more people to go find them to make sure they're safe. And it's giving we don't really care if she lives.
Yeah. Yeah. And that just goes to further prove her point, right? Yep. That like the realm doesn't care about me. Right. Y'all just worried about Aegon. Because let Aegon crawl away too far, it's going to be a problem.
Listen, You just said that, and it brought me to the episode of Avatar: The Last Airbender when they're in Omashu, and May's little brother like just crawls away and like winds up leaving with the rest of the people of the city. Do you remember that episode?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why you said that, and I was like, oh, like the little boy who like whatever. Anyways,
Yeah.
back on the hunt.
Yes. Let's get back on track.
Viserys learns his men spotted a white hart stag, a sign of nobility and good fortune in the Kingswood. His people, including Otto, try to convince him this is a sign that supports Aegon being named heir, since it's happening during his birthday celebration. Viserys gets white boy wasted, as it's clear the topic of his heir is eating away at him. When Jason Lannister reaffirms his interest in Rhaenyra, Viserys shows the audience he's worried about what the realm thinks of his family. He drunkenly confronts Jason for implying that the Targaryens need more strength, and for bringing up Rhaenyra's standing as heir. Viserys reinforces that any chatter about whether Aegon will be heir would be taken as a sign of rebellion against the crown. His advisors all weigh in on what Viserys should do about his heir. So, to flesh this out a little bit more, Otto basically suggests that Viserys should just force Rhaenyra to marry. He's like, you're the king, I know that's your daughter, but like she needs to do whatever she tells you to do, so just tell her to do it. And Viserys is kind of like, I want her to be happy. She's my daughter. I love her. Like, stop it.
Yeah.
Then Otto goes to suggest that Rhaenyra marry Aegon, her 2-year-old brother. What are your thoughts about that?
Gross. Disgusting. Filthy.
So
Otto's an animal.
Listen, so Otto so far has shapen up to be the smartest political player, in my opinion, so far in these first 3 episodes. When he mentioned this, I may have been intoxicated, but I was very much deep in thought, and I was like, wait a minute, that could work. Hear me out. You ready? He's 2, she's 17, right? He is not going to be like expected to like bring an heir around until he's what? 16, 17, 18 himself? That would put her at like 30 something. Would she still be able to have kids at that point? Probably, sure. I mean, I hope so for my own sake, but sure. Yes, she would be. But she's going to be pretty old, right?
They are going to, by their standards, she'll be considered old.
By their standards, she'll be considered old. And in those 15 years, it's fairly easy, in my opinion, to groom a boy who knows that he's going to essentially say, I don't want to marry my sister anymore. I'm going to marry. He could just choose to marry somebody else. Yeah. And that effectively gets Rhaenyra out of marrying anyone for most of her life.
I think the issue with that becomes, what if Viserys dies within all that time? Because then if Aegon is still not crowned heir, and we leave Rhaenyra to still be crowned heir, and Viserys dies, she can just do what she wants at that point. So she don't even have to be like, oh, I'm gonna wait for my brother to get older and still marry him. She can just be like, I'm gonna marry whoever, or I'm just gonna stay single and just be queen and rule. Right?
But that would happen with regardless of if she was heir or if Aegon was heir. They both can do it.
Decide to marry someone. I know, but the point would be Otto would want Aegon to end up being ruler.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yes.
So you know what I mean? Yes. So like it all falls down on Aegon being crowned heir regardless. Yeah. So if he's because like I mean, if Viserys stays alive, that it could possibly work, maybe. But again, or even if it doesn't work, right? But Aegon's been named heir, it's like, oh, Otto wins either way.
Yep.
Right. But if Aegon isn't named heir, then it can all fall apart depending on how long Viserys lasts.
Good point. I just thought it was a creative suggestion.
It's not a bad idea. I think if they were closer in age, it would work out better, because it would just be like, yo, make them get married right now, call it a day, and like, you know, she gets to be queen, but not ruling queen, right? And you can make. And like it will sort of be the best of both worlds, even though Rhaenyra would be, she would be miserable, but it's a good political move. It's not a bad political move at
all. Speaking of political moves, I think this one is probably the strongest suggestion. So Lionel Strong, no pun intended, to me saying it's the strongest suggestion, who's the master of laws on the King's Council. He suggests that Viserys try to encourage Rhaenyra to marry the son of Corlys, the sea snake, Laenor Velaryon, and suggests that he is a way better match than any Lannister or anybody else in the realm. They have the money, they have the name, they have the blood. He's a dragon rider, as we'll learn later on. Like, I honestly think that that is the answer to this.
And it could repair. It could repair the damage that Viserys has caused between these two families. I think it is the smartest pairing that they could make, 100%. If you're talking about stability in the realm moving forward, name Aegon heir, marry her off to Lenore, and keep it moving. And the Velaryons and the Targaryens have a long line of like marrying each other, which adds to the fuel, which adds fuel to the fire of why Corlys was so upset when he got passed over. You know, it was just like, this is like the basis of our families together, you know, like we marry each other, we strengthen these bonds, we keep the Valyrian bloodline going. And you know what I'm saying? And a lot of them are mixed within each other. Like, so, you know, there's essentially a lot of Targaryen blood within Velaryons. So it just made sense. So when Corlys gets passed up, that's why he's extra upset. And so I think creating this match would be a great way to mend fences and bring these families back together and bring some more security to the realm.
So, yeah.
We got to see if Corlys is willing to do it.
So two things that I want to mention. To your point about bringing stabilization to these two families, absolutely. This is the way to do it. But you made a point about stabilizing the realm, and you mentioned that, like, naming Aegon as heir and having Rhaenyra marry Laenor is the way to do it. Agreed. If we're talking about stabilizing the realm, full stop, Aegon needs to be made heir. Like, full stop. However, I don't think that's going to happen, right? And then, so in the situation or in the scenario where Aegon is not made heir and Rhaenyra is still married off or decides to marry Laenor, I think that's still a great match for all the things you said. And Laenor essentially grew up in a household where his father was preparing to be the king consort for a queen. So he is probably the best person in the realm to support a queen who is an active ruler, since his mother was preparing to do that and his father was preparing to support her within that, basically.
That's a good point. I never thought about it like that. That's definitely a good point. But again, can they make it happen? Will it happen? I doubt it. But it's a fun thought that this could be a possibility.
So, I mean, and let's just take that a step further. Let's say that, you know, Viserys and Alicent come up with a way to introduce Laenor and Rhaenyra in a way so that they decide themselves to get married. Maybe Rhaenyra is like, all right, I do have to get married. He's a dragon rider. Let me just do it. And they get together. Now Viserys has the Valyrians back on his side, and more specifically, supporting Rhaenyra. Whereas for this episode, we would assume, I mean, everyone's waiting for Daemon and Rhaenyra to, like, butt heads, right? We're waiting for that to happen. But now with this in play, if this actually comes to fruition, who will Corlys and his family support? His son? Or Daemon, who just saved them, basically, who just saved their family from annihilation in the Sea Stones. What's it called? Over there in the east.
The
basically.
Stepstones?
Right.
Whatever.
So just in general, like,
did he save them or did Laenor save them?
That's a good point. That's good. That's a good point.
I mean, I'll share more thoughts when we get to that part in the show. But did he? But yes, continue.
That's a good point. So in any event, you know, the Leonard Rhaenyra potential match, I think, will pose a lot of different possible scenarios moving forward for the political dynamics in the realm. And that excites me about this story moving forward.
Yeah.
So anyway, speaking of the realm, Rhaenyra asks Christian if he thinks the realm will ever accept her as their queen, and he replies that they'll have no choice since she'll be queen. Then they are immediately attacked by a wild boar, which they successfully kill. So Christian essentially is saying, like, and what I took from that is he's like, no, they're not going to respect you, but they're not going to have any choice. So just like power your way through or force them to. And it gave me like this like Mad Queen vibes, like him like telling her to like, or suggesting that she's going to have to be a dragon in order to get the realm to listen to her. What were your thoughts about that?
She's definitely going to have to show strength 100%, I think, to have the realm even faintly support her. She cannot be timid. She cannot be shy. She can't be passive or any of these things. She is going to have to be her true dragon self. And the great thing about that is that she already is that. So I think he makes a good point. Like, just continue to be yourself and just prove yourself. And like, that's your best route and that's your best bet, especially if you're not concerned about getting married and doing all these things. That's what you're going to have to do.
Yep.
And we see it when she takes that knife to that boar, she let out all her frustrations.
She absolutely did.
She put that thing down. She said, "You are not taking me out."
She had the look to prove it too. We'll get to that a little bit later too. Really quickly, wild boar in the Kingswood. Who does that remind you of?
Our beautiful man, Bobby B.
Bobby B.
Bobby Baratheon, who actually is killed by a boar. We'll talk about this in a hot second. So we know that he was drunk and or poisoned. We don't really know for sure that Bobby B, back in Game of Thrones, was super drunk when he went on his hunt. Seeing how they literally just like tie the thing down for the king to kill is wild, because if they did that with a boar and he still got stabbed to the point where he was like drunk enough where he still got stabbed by the boar who was already tied down. Right.
Just like, it just put a different visual
what really
in my head
happened
about how that all went down. Yeah.
Yep. What really happened in the Kingswood.
Anyways, Viserys confides in Alicent that he had a dream that a male from his line, I think he said a son specifically, will sit on the throne, and tells her how conflicted he is about this whole heir business. So he basically says that like he was distraught after his wife died. He thought he wasn't going to have any more kids. He loves Rhaenyra. I think he thinks she can do it. Let's name her heir. But now that he has this son, add that to the dream that he had, and he takes stock in his dreams or prophecies, what have you. The conflict is obviously there. And then he also admitted that he blames himself for his wife's death because he was obsessed with that dream and really wanted a son. So he's second guessing all of his decisions right now. How did you feel about that scene?
That man is stressed. He is stressed 100%. And it is eating away at him, and he is drinking all his worries away. And and I think this is the epitome of, he's a good man, but a bad king. And he feels so sorry, and he feels distraught about all of the decisions that he made. And he's constantly worrying about, is he making the best decisions? But is he really fit to be a ruler? Not quite. But it's nice to know that he's kind of a good guy, sort of.
I mean, he said very explicitly later in the episode, I keep doing this, I'm sorry, that his ex-wife made him into a man. I wonder how much of his rule up until this point was predicated on having his ex-wife there to kind of either check him or like just be the balance that he needed to be a decent king up until the point that she died. It's clear without her in her absence, he doesn't know what he's doing. And I just wonder if he's always felt that way, or it's just now that he doesn't have her that it's so all over the place for him. I don't know.
He's lost. And I think it's interesting because usually when we are talking about like George R. R. Martin's works and stuff like that, it's usually the one who doesn't want it is the one who deserves it the most. And in this case, I feel like it's the opposite. It's like the one who doesn't want it definitely should not have it. And so it's interesting to watch this play out in this kind of way.
Agree. The next day, Viserys kills the stag, and the look on his face is like almost as one of relief that it's not the white hart stag that everyone's been talking about. We know that he takes stock in prophecy and dreams and even like some signs, I would assume also, like he's just a superstitious person. And so the white hart stag not showing up, I think he's taking as a sign that he made the right decision in naming Rhaenyra. So we also see right afterwards that Rhaenyra and Kristen, who are out in the woods somewhere else, are approached by the actual white hart stag in another part of the woods, but decide not to kill it. They bring their boar back to camp the next morning, and Rhaenyra is walking all the way tall with blood all over her and everything. It was a great shot.
Yeah, absolutely. Just her walking through camp, and everybody's like, "Oh, damn! Like you were busy last night." Okay, cool. And I think to me, those scenes exemplify the differences between Viserys and Rhaenyra. You know, she actively kills the boar, right? She holds it down, stabs it, uses her own blade, everything like that. Whereas Viserys, he needs his men to track, hunt, and hold down the stag. And then they literally have to tell him like, oh, stab it right here. And on the first try, it doesn't work. And they're like, a little to the left, King. And then he finally gets it, right? But like, but there's this like, I don't even know how to describe his like expression, but it's like, he did not want to do this. Like he takes no joy in this. Whereas Rhaenyra, she doesn't take joy, but you can see the viciousness. You can see the power coming out of her.
The emotion.
The emotion that's coming out of her as she's killing this boar. So I think that was a great way to set up the different sides of the coin.
Yep, totally agree with everything you said. And I would just add that, like, the white hart stag walking up to Rhaenyra, staring her in her face, like, they're all very majestic and very Patronus-like, was a signal to, in my opinion, a signal to the audience that the white hart chose her. Like, she got the blessing. That she is the one to rule, like, you know, based off of all the all of the superstitions that were spreading around the camp. So I thought that was like super, super fun. And one of the final scenes, one of the final scenes, we see Otto tell Alicent to convince Viserys to name Aegon king. Like, he's just going for it right now. Like, he tried different ways with Viserys himself, and he's like, all right, it worked before, and let me send my daughter in there to set my agenda with the king. Alicent instead tells Viserys she believes Rhaenyra will marry, but she has to think it's her idea, and then convinces the king to go to Daemon's aid. Viserys sends the aid because he doesn't want his brother to die and swears on his ex-wife's memory that he doesn't plan to replace Rhaenyra as heir. He's firm that she needs to marry to strengthen her claim, but gives her permission to find her husband on her own. How did you feel about like those two scenes?
I mean, the look on her face when he's like, hey, you know, I want you to marry, but you get to pick who you want. She's like, what? Really? I was with her on that because, like, I kind of had the same reaction too. Where it's just like, this is okay. I mean, honestly, it's the best option that he can make if he wants to keep good standing with his daughter. I think it's the best choice that he can make is like, cool, you find who you think is suitable, but I want you to actively search. Like, I'm telling you to actively search and find who you think is the right one, but you'll get to pick. And so I'm curious to see what that process is going to look like. Like, is she just going to be in the throne room and it's going to be a line of men pulling up? Like, here's what I have to offer. Like, you know, I'm excited to see what that's going to be like and who she will eventually actually choose. I think that's going to be I hope they make it a fun process. We'll see. I'm not
I
sure.
doubt it. But I doubt
Do
it.
you think it'll actually play out in this way though, that she'll be able to pick who she wants? Or
I
do you think she'll be
almost
pushed?
I almost wonder if we might see, and this is probably more wishful thinking than what will actually happen. It would be nice if this is how Allison and Rhaenyra get close again. If
Mm,
she confides in Allison or Allison offers to like help her in her search. Obviously, Allison is the one in the realm that knows Rhaenyra the best, and Rhaenyra has to know that, right?
mm-hmm.
So why not bring someone in your council who knows you to help you with this particular process? She might be snarky about it. She might say, "How did you trap my dad?" But like, that's what I would do. I'd
That
be
would
like,
be
"Okay,
my question.
I know, right? How'd you do that?" And she'd be like, "My dad sent me in." She's like, "All right, got it." But I think that could be interesting. And then the other thing I wanted to call out really quickly was like, Viserys swears on his ex-wife's grave memory that he's not going to replace Rhaenyra as heir.
Mm-hmm.
That felt like another promise. And it felt like one that this show is set up to break. How do you feel about that?
I think it's a promise he's going to keep. The question is, when is Viserys' expiration date?
Mm,
Um, because I mean, I don't recall in all the stories that we've heard or whatever, like how long he lives, how many more kids he's gonna have. So it wouldn't shock me if he dies
hmm
before all of that comes into question, and maybe that's one of the events that kind of kicks off
Oh
the
yeah,
whole Dance of the Dragons
absolutely.
and everything like that. So I think he plans on keeping, I think he's going to keep this promise. I just think he's going to die. And then that's when everything is going to like spiral out of
Pop off.
control.
Got
Mm-hmm.
it.
Oh,
Agree.
sure. And I think we should
Agree.
also, when it comes to the stepstones and everything, I think we should also mention that Vaemon, Corliss's brother, is the one who sends the letter for aid because Daemon is too hard headed. Corlys is too scorned. Nobody's asking the crown for help. And so Vaemon is the one who actually sends the letter and is like, we are failing. We need some help. We need the backing of the king. And, Viserys is like, man, I ain't gonna let my brother die. Like, whatever, because and Alicent makes a good point. She's like, well, what's better for the realm, for the crab feeder to succeed or for the crab feeder to be defeated? You may not want to show that you're supporting Daemon's insolence, but at the same time, what's going to be better for the realm in regards to the crab feeder? And I think he made the best decision that he could at that point.
I
But,
agree. That
yeah.
speaking of the stepstones, we cut to in the final like scene of the episode. We see Daemon and Corliss's forces are wavering in their confidence in Daemon. Daemon receives the letter from Viserys that aid is coming, and in a rage, Daemon beats the messenger. Heavy Spartan 300 vibes from this.
Okay, don't kill the
When the
messenger,
right,
man.
don't kill the messenger. Damon then wades into the crab feeder's territory alone to fight the crab feeder himself. He's almost overtaken when Laenor Valerion, on Dragonback, Sea Smoke, the dragon, and their forces come in just in time to change the tide of the battle. Heavy shades of Battle of Bastards. Damon is victorious. He brings back the crab feeder's torso for everyone to see. So,
Mm-hmm.
I already mentioned that there were some heavy shades of Battle of the Bastards. The two
Definitely.
main things were one, the main character being saved just in the nick of time. And two, the whole like Damon going out there by himself to fight an entire army by himself.
Yeah.
Heavy shades of John, falling off his horse, unsheathing his sword, throwing the sheath away, and being like, "All right, Ramsay and your army, let's do this." I feel like it was very deliberate, almost too on the nose in the moment.
Yeah.
But I thought it was a fun callback nonetheless.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. And nobody expected Damon to do it because
Mm-hmm.
they're trying to figure out like, okay, here's our plan, but who's going to be the decoy, right? And everybody's like, well, Damon's not going to do it. And then after reading this letter that, which is kind of interesting because it's like, I thought after everything, he would want Viserys to come to his rescue and or not come to his rescue, but come, support the cause. And maybe he took it more as like, I don't need my big brother to save me. Like, I can do this on my own, which made me feel like that was part of his coming of age, his I'm going to stand on my own, his I'm the second son and I'm going to go get what I need to go get kind of moment. And so it's like, man, I don't need you at this point. I'm going to go do this by myself, which dumb, because at least, let the rest of the team know, like, hey, here's the play, guys. I'm going to need y'all to come in at this moment. Because to me, they waited just a twinge too long, which made me feel like nobody knew he was going to go do this. And so they were like, oh, snap, Damon's missing. I think I know what he went to go do. But I wonder if he walked into the camp feeling like I'm going to emerge victorious, or if it was just kind of like, if I die, I die. Like, I wonder if some of those feelings were lingering.
So, two things. One, when I watched it, I took it as he snuck away and was just like, he took it as my brother, I'm not going to sit up here and be saved by my brother.
Yeah.
One. Two, my brother still can't grace me with his presence. I think that's like part of why he beat the messenger. It was just like, even in the last episode, he's like, my brother sent you, he didn't come himself. I think there's something about Damon wanting his brother's attention, but he wants that to be the way the way he wants to measure it is by Sirius actually physically showing up for him. And I think that's part of what set him over the edge. So that's one. Two, totally forgot until you just said it that they were planning this decoy like strategy. Now that I know that, it makes me think that they did know that Damon was going to go and be the decoy. I think specifically you mentioned like waiting to the last moment. Their whole thing was they needed to draw everyone out of the caves. And that was the moment.
A twinge too long. That was my thing. It felt just a twinge too long. That's why I was like, I'm not sure if they knew or not.
I hear you. But at that moment was when the crab feeder sent all of his people out of the caves. Yeah. Was at that particular moment. So could be coincidence. Coincidence could have been strategy. Yeah. I don't know. I agree. The looks of it all, it looks like he snuck away and did it himself. Like he was hell bent on having a suicide mission to like die in glory rather than have his brother come save him is how it felt.
Yeah, to me it looked a little cloudy in terms of like how, if this was actually the agreed upon procedure and stuff. And we must mention also that Lenore was leading the discussion about strategy within all of this. My baby boy is all grown up. He is all grown up and he's out here like, well, what were you doing, uncle, while we was out here fighting and stuff? So, also another great, moment for him. And then showing up on Sea Smoke, riding down, saving the last minute. And this is what I was trying to get to when you were like, oh, well, Damon saved them. And I was just like, did he?
Yeah, you got a good point.
Obviously, he plays a big role because he's going to be the figure that is going to draw them all out, right? Because it's like, this is the king's brother. If anybody was going to draw them out in the way that he did, it was him. But at the end of the day, Sea Smoke did a lot of the heavy lifting. Is what I'm saying. He did a lot of the heavy lifting, but I think Damon is going to return to the realm a hero. And I think that's what we're saying that.
Speaking of, who do you think won this episode?
I was conflicted between Rhaenyra and Damon.
Same.
And I chose Damon. And the reason why I chose Damon is because although he is not heir, I feel like he's going to return to the realm as a hero, even though he went against the king. He's going to still be seen as a hero, as a legend. And I think this is going to solidify some sort of place for him in the realm. Whereas Rhaenyra, even though she walks back to the camp victorious after killing this boar and showing some strength and all this stuff, no one still wants to see her on the throne. So to me, I felt like Damon has a better edge in terms of how the realm is going to view him going forward. Who is your MVP?
I picked him also for the
You
same
did?
reasons. Yeah, I didn't love it, but yeah, when it comes to being set up for future success,
Yeah.
The way Damon's story arc ended in this episode just sets him up for way better chances and opportunities than Rhaenyra's arc. And really, Rhaenyra won. What I was thinking about was Rhaenyra won because she gets to pick her own husband now, which is huge for her as a woman. And she was reassured that she would not be replaced as heir, at least by Viserys.
This is true,
right?
Yeah.
So those are kind of the two main points where I was like, well, she does kind of end the episode on top versus where she started. Yeah. But Damon, his gap where he ended is way higher than Rhaenyra. Yeah. So
big argument could be made for Rhaenyra. I think argument could be made for Alicent, even though most of her victories take place off camera. Because I mean, at the end of the day, she ascended to queen, and she gave the king a son. So you know, is she out here wielding her power? Slight nitpick. I did not like that the crab feeder was killed off screen. That bothered me. I felt like we were not that we set up like seasons of this big showdown or anything like that, but still, like, he was kind of the big bad of the last 3 episodes. So to not even see him get cut down or do battle or anything like that, it was just kind of like, okay. And then we finally got his name. Like, I'm like, oh, we got the man's name and everything. I don't know. It was.
I'm okay with it. He never said anything. I'm kind of okay with it.
Yeah, it was kind of Night King.
It was we had King X.
Yeah. We had a longer road with the Night King that deserved a lot more, but we won't get into that. But I wish it was odd to me that it was off screen that it happened, especially if this is supposed to be Damon's victory. It was just kind of weird to me that it happened off screen, but I
get it. I mean, obviously he fought tooth and nail. He was covered in a lot of blood, so it did not look like it was an easy fight, but he brought that half of his torso with him. So I wasn't mad at it. I didn't need to see him cut the dude in half. I was fine.
Other nitpick, wait. Real quick. I know. Other nitpick though. Where the hell was Sea Smoke this whole time? Where was he? For y'all to because at first when I saw the dragon, I was like, oh, here comes Caraxes. I was like, but wait, who's on Caraxes? Wait, that dragon's not red. It's not Caraxes. I was like, what is going on here? And then so when you realize it's Lenore and he's a dragon rider and it's his dragon Sea Smoke, I was just like, so y'all had a whole nother dragon this whole time and we've been fighting for 3 years because...
So... to play devil's advocate.
Yeah, go ahead.
We don't know when Lenore entered the battle, like entered the war. Remember, he was super young when we last saw him. That's one.
Suppose.
2, everything else you said is right.
But those are my final thoughts. I thought it was a great episode. It was fun. It was exciting. And good stuff about this. But we can head to the next episode.
Yeah, so looking forward to the next episode. We see that Damon's back in King's Landing, and the conversation of Rhaenyra versus Daemon as heir is still in the air. There's a room, and we know that there's a rumor going around that looks like it will tear the family apart. And I think we saw like something like a dragon attacking a Targaryen ship. Something along those lines?
Yeah, so something's definitely going to go down. I'm expecting more time jumps. I suspect that the rumor is going to be about Kristen and Rhaenyra in the forest. I think that's what it's going to be. She's like, that's a vile rumor and all this stuff. So I suspect that that's what it's going to be about.
I wonder if it's about, because we also hear Alicent say that, assuming she's talking to Viserys, that Daemon has the personality to spread a vile rumor or whatever. So what's Daemon's role in the spreading of this rumor? Also, is he a part of this rumor? I think Rhaenyra and Kristen being the rumor is a good one. I think something else that questions Rhaenyra's like
Virtue.
virtue. Maybe like would Damon or someone even be wild enough to suggest that him and Rhaenyra did stuff? I don't know.
There
So
was little incestuous vibes, like the first episode when he puts that necklace on her. So
yeah, maybe it's that Rhaenyra and Damon are way closer than anyone thinks because she knew that he was snuck into the city and like all that stuff. Like people knew about that. So I don't know, but I'm excited to see. This honestly feels like a Jerry Springer saga to me with the
I'm here for
craziness
it.
of all the family dynamics, and I'm here for it too.
I am
So
ready. Any final thoughts that you have?
I'm still along for the ride.
Oh, always on the ride the King's Road. All right, guys. Well, thank you for joining us again. And we hope you continue to join us again and again and again. Please stay tuned as we bring you our thoughts and reactions to House of the Dragon. Like, subscribe, follow, do all the things on our social, Casual Fangirls on YouTube. And we are also at Casual Fangirls _ on Instagram. As always, I've been Nessa.
And I'm T.
And together we are the Casual Fangirls. See you soon.